I think the only difficulty with that is like, you know, there's a verse that says, what does it benefit a man to gain the world and lose their soul? And I think, especially coming from the secular space as well, like, when I first came into the scene, like, I was already torn with Burna Boy. I already had a track with Heady One. So in my head, I'm like, I'm doing what everyone's saying that sells. But going back to what you said earlier on and what you said about peace, like the peace that surpasses all understanding was not present at all. And when I decided that I was gonna be intentional about building that relationship, I had to ask myself, if I'm being sent out into the world to be a light, how can I be a light if I'm mixing that with darkness? You know? And I think when you're touching on those topics, it's not a bad, like, let me be real, like, you're influencing something, innit? At the end of the day, it's like, you know, they say influencers. As artists, we are indirectly influencers. We're influencing a lifestyle, we're influencing a way of life, of thinking. And I think when we do touch on those topics that sell, going back to the verse, it's like, do we want to lose our souls to gain worldly treasures? Which, by the way, you can still gain in abundance if you don't. But are you willing to take that risk for God? And I feel like with me, when I made that transition, it was hard. Like when I did the fast I mentioned earlier, I was battling. I remember talking to one of my boys and I was like, bro, like, I've already made like noise in the space. Like, what the heck? What am I doing? Like, there's bags that are there. Like, I literally had just gone on tour. I think I opened up for Ira. I was on tour. I was in Rome. I was like, what am I doing? But there's opportunities and doors that opened that I was begging God to open for years that it only unlocked when I was obedient. And I really sacrificed those riches of the world. And also I had to ask God to change the desires of my heart. Like, I want my desires to align with your will for my life. And I think when you're really intentional about doing that, you won't want to do the things that you think is what is actually opening doors. Because the reality is it's God that's opening the doors.
So are you okay with touching on those topics now? Like,
no, like I feel like if there's experiences like let me give an example, like heartbreak or something. Like that's something as a woman I've experienced. I touched on that in a faith-based song that I made, but that wasn't the focus of the song. I just touched on it within the storyline of where I was getting to, which was God is the one that heals, God is the one that restores.
I think it's interesting that I'm opening it up, like how are we defining this mix? Because there's obviously people that hear individuals like us navigate this topic and they need to understand, oh, can I talk about this or can I not talk about this? So, I mean, how would you guys distinguish with it? Do you feel okay with talking about money, sex, drugs? Let me just talk about me. I talk about everything. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that is the most authentic and most genuine way to connect with the consumer, if that is the reality that you navigate with, whether from your personal experience or just your viewpoint, your perspective. You know what I mean? I feel like I've been in a caged and boxed for many years early when I first discovered the faith, because I was met with a religious system that said, I can't touch on certain topics. You're gonna automatically know I'm Christian when you hear how I live my life and you see what I do. But in the music I create, you're not gonna just hear my Christianity, you're gonna hear my life. And my life isn't just church. It's not. You get me? You're gonna hear about my experiences, my traumas, my burdens. And I think fear has kind of caged a generation of creatives that want to feel allowed to touch on topics. Yeah, for me, I don't think there's no difference. I think sharing your life experiences is so important. And like, I think you even said it earlier, Esther, when you were saying that there wasn't an artist like you that has your experience, like they want to know your story. So I feel like that fear sometimes that I know I felt, because I felt that when I first got saved and I started navigating, oh, what can I say, what can I not say? Like, I think that put me in a box, and I think I've only just finally found peace in just knowing I can just be real. You know what I mean?
That stuff's not real though, man. Like, and anyone can disagree, but this notion that like money, sex, drugs is what sells, I don't think it's true. I think what has always sold is authenticity. I think when you listen to like 50 Cent talking about what he talks about, whether it's money, it's because you believe him. Yeah. That's why it sells. If you talk about Eminem, like he sold because you believe him. Kendrick Lamar, with his more, you know, uplifting themes, it sells because you believe him. And I think that's what sells.
How about Doja Cat, for example? I'm gonna let you take it off.
Yeah.
Let's say an artist like Doja Cat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doja Cat once upon a time was over-sexualizing herself, but then there was a point where she just started shaving her hair off, not giving a toss about people's opinions, and I feel like deep down, that wasn't authentically her.
Yeah.
She
What
was
the switch to her before?
the one before.
Okay.
The over-sexualization.
Over-sexualized version of her.
Yeah.
I feel like at the time where she's in label situations, people obviously telling her this is what's selling, this is where you got to portray, what's going to make you money. Yeah. But deep down in her heart, is that really what she wanted? Now, I feel like back then, music was much soulful. That's why it was selling. Now, it's a complete different algorithmic ball game where it's like strategy and whatever turns the consumer's eye is what sells the most. And it's not necessarily what is authentic.
Yeah.
That's
But I will
a
say that
valid
the-
perspective as well.
The stuff that sells, yeah, might go like way up here, but for a short space of time.
That's very
Whereas
true.
there's
Very, very,
artists
very
that-
true.
But they'll stay here for like 10 years. Like,
Years,
you know what I'm saying?
longevity. Yeah. Real music will always last.
And they'll peak as well, and they'll stay there.
If a woman has less clothes on, it's going to get more views. That's facts.
That's
I
true.
think, personally.
That
and
is true.
With the topics of like drugs, sex, I talk about it all, but I get a kick out of saying I was celibate. Like, people might not like it, but I get a kick out of that because I'm like, I'm proud that I was able, because it's not easy, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So it's, and even with drugs, I'll talk about drugs, but I won't glamorize it. I'll be talking about an overdose, or I'll be talking about how I'd spent all my money on drugs and didn't have enough to pay rent. And if it's finance, most of my songs, I'm telling you I'm broke, because I'm broke. That's the reality, and I don't have shame in that. That's the reality of do you know what I'm saying? So I'll talk about all
I
topics.
don't
but from a-
dispute that, yeah. And I think you're right. Less clothes almost always results in more
100%.
success.
More, yeah.
But then who would you say is the biggest female rapper in this country?
In this country,
Because I would say it's Little Sims.
It is, but
And-
it's been a long, she's had to
long
do, all, you know, it's been a long, long, long
very
journey
long
for her.
time.
Whereas I'm sure had she taken her clothes off year one, it might be a different.
And
then
we
she wouldn't
define
be
that
able to-
success as well. Stims in terms of her legacy, absolutely. But in terms of her numbers, there's arguably as artists that, you know what I mean, are streaming more because of what.
Yeah, harder path, but takes a lot longer.
Yeah.